And again, is it the worst possible product ever? No, you could put all your money in a mattress, and that would be worse than owning a whole life policy.
Yeah.
Right? You could put all your money in CDs, and that would be worse than owning a whole life policy. But I don't think people are looking to be mediocre with their money.
Yeah.
Right? They want the best advice, the best strategies. They want their money to work the hardest for them, not just be like, okay.
All right, well, welcome back to another episode of the Pay It Forward podcast. I'm Keegan Walls with my co-host Austin Seward, and today we have the pleasure of having on Freeman Linde. Freeman is a certified financial planner with Crosse Financial Planning. He is the author of 3D Retirement Income, Creating a Retirement Income that Outpaces Inflation, Outlives You, and Outperforms Others. And he is also the host of the RetireMentorship podcast. So very excited to have you here today, Freeman. So thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's been maybe awesome. Been listening since the beginning for this podcast, so it's just cool to be kind of behind the mic and chatting with you guys. So thanks for what you're doing in the community here.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
Awesome.
Cool.
Well, why don't you just introduce yourself to those who don't know you? Just give them a little background of what you do, your financial planning, and then just a little bit into who Freeman really is.
Yeah. So I am originally from the Twin Cities area. Came down here for school. Met my wife Kayla while we were at UWL, and got married right after graduation. She graduated a year later. We had that get a job. Then the other one graduates, they get a job, and we just kind of stayed in the community. It's a great community here in La Crosse, and went to First Free for a long time, and so just built up some great community. So we never left. Right? It's just better here than the Twin Cities, and went for management in school, but I always was interested in finances. Read Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover in one sitting. When I first said, I'm like, man, it's really cool when you know what you're doing with money and it's not an obstacle, it's not an unknown, and you can actually manage it well. You can do a lot of really cool things with that. And so after my wife graduated and got a job, I decided to leave retail, which is what I was doing at that point, and jump into helping other people with their finances, and kind of had this whole track of joining in on an insurance-based firm and then going more and more independent until finally launching my own firm back in 2021 and building that up from scratch. And so that's been a whole journey. But I think and we'll probably obviously more lean towards the business side here in this podcast, but obviously building a family over that time too, which is more important to me, and continuing to build a community and just build myself up as hopefully as a father and a husband and as a man and person. And so I think a lot of that stuff is one of the things that's really resonated with me about your guys' podcast, right, is kind of that look at, hey, what is real success, and challenging the definition of success. And that stood out to me immediately when I saw your initial promos. And so I'm also consider, there's many ways to be successful in life, and some ways that can look successful, but are ultimately not, I don't think, or at least not according to my values. And so trying to prove that you can be successful in a lot of ways at once, and you don't necessarily have to sacrifice all of certain aspects of your life in order to be successful in another. So I'm broken. I'm in process. I'm figuring things out. But it's been a fun ride, and proud of where I'm at and where I'm going. So
cool. So was Dave Ramsey your initial inspiration to get into finance?
Yeah, totally. You guys probably have heard him, maybe read his books, listened to his radio show and stuff like that. He's got a great personality for that, right? I don't know how well it's going to do when he finally officially retires, but I just like you'd see that, and I did a couple of the classes at First Free. Did one and then helped teach one, and just again seeing those light bulbs turn on for other people and being a part of that, and I think there's a few industries, a few callings that are out there where you have just mega impacts on people's lives, right? And being a pastor, being in healthcare, law enforcement. I mean, you guys are kind of that too, right? Where you get to be a part of one of their biggest transactions that they're going to have and helping make people's dreams come true, right? And so I'm sure there's probably some excitement there, right? When you help people make those dreams come true. And so in the same way, like, I think one of the most impactful things to me is when you meet with a client and you're teaching them a concept, right? And Dave Ramsey would always talk about, hey, if you're going to work with someone, make sure you find someone who's got the heart of a teacher, right? Who's not trying to appear smart or trying to make you feel stupid by how much more they know than you and using all this jargon, but just to teach people. And so I've always taken that approach. And it's true, like when you could just teach people about their money and about where they're going and the things that they can do, and you see those light bulbs turn on and you see anxiety or fear turn into hope and excitement, like there's no better feeling than that. And so, he was the inspiration, and we're just taking it from there. It's a great career for anyone else who's in it or considering it. It's tough to get into, especially, but the washout rate's pretty high, as I'm sure it is in real estate as well.
Yep.
So you guys probably know something about that too. But once you can make it, it's my calling for sure.
Yeah.
And it's not just a job; it's a vocation and in some ways a ministry. So it's been great.
Super cool. Yeah, Dave Ramsey's come up a lot on the podcast.
If it's finances, it's Dave Ramsey.
Yeah.
If it's real estate, it's Robert Kiyosaki.
Yeah.
It's like those two.
Dave Ramsey was one of my first inspirations to invest in real estate.
Yeah. Yep.
When he has the millionaire segments, and hey, if you're a millionaire, call on the show. And
Yep.
You have all these people, and you have people from teachers making $40,000 a year to doctors making $400,000, and business owners and everybody in between.
Yep.
And the commonality amongst 99.9% of those people is a huge chunk of their net worth was in real estate. For a lot of people, that was a paid-for primary residence. For others, it was rental properties or the combination of both. But just listening to those episodes, I knew I wanted to make a lot of money. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to gain financial freedom. And I remember I actually considered being a financial advisor right out of college. And I remember my dad telling me when I was young, you want to make a lot of money, work in money, right? That's what you're doing.
Yep.
So if you know how to manage people's money and do it well, or handle large sums of money, there's a lot of money in money.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, those two kind of in combination, or was my inspiration, one of the first to get into real estate. So tell us about what that's like starting out. We joked beforehand, like for the young ambitious kid out of college who wants to be an entrepreneur, they're going to go sell insurance, Yep. They're going to go become a financial advisor, or they're going to be a real estate agent,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And there's a lot of differences amongst each one of those and benefits to each one of those, and
Yep.
high income potential with all of those. But like you said, there's also a high washout rate with all those too. So
Yep.
what's it like the first couple of years in business? And I don't know if you can share where you started at. And
Yeah. So I came into the industry the way a lot of people do, where I was, I wanted to get into it. So I was exploring it. And so I interviewed with a few people, and I joined a firm that I thought it was its own kind of separate entity. Found out later it was owned by a bigger mothership that was then bought out like 2 weeks after I started by another Fortune 100 insurance company. And so it wasn't Northwestern Mutual, but it was a very, that people are familiar with them around here. It's very Northwestern Mutual-ish. It's like their number one competitor, but they're all on the East Coast. And so we were a local office, kind of doing business as a local name, but under that kind of umbrella there. And the way that I came on, and a lot of people come on then, is they kind of dangle like these amazing carrots and sugar cubes and stuff out there, like, oh, unlimited, income potential. You can make a lot of money, helping other people make a lot of money. It's going to be amazing, all these things. And then what that really looks like is, hey, call all your friends and family and try to sell them whole life insurance. Right? And that's just, there's a lot of companies here in town that do it that way. They recruited the same way. You get a whole bunch of kids out of college or first-time career changers. Yeah, they go through, they annoy all their friends and family. They get to sit down with maybe 20 of them. They sell 15 of them a product. The advisor washes out because they don't make enough income, but the company gets to keep all the policies.
Yeah.
So it's they have no risk because they don't pay them anything, right? It's all commission. And so if they fail, and it's it's no sweat off the company. And if they sort of succeed and sell some policies and then fail, they win there. And if they're super successful and go on to sell policies for them for 3 decades, then obviously they win. So it's a win-win-win for the company, and a lose-lose, maybe win for most people that try to do it. And my problem was that I came into finance through Dave Ramsey.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know
Whole
this.
life is not a part of the equation.
Yeah, he's not a fan, right? So he's got phrases like, whole life is the payday lender of the middle class, and these things. And so you come in and you're like, man, I've always heard this is like a crappy product. But then you've got like CFPs and like people with all of this alphabet soup behind their name, like explaining to you, no, like he's just a radio guru. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Like here's how like the experts use it inside of financial planning. And here's why it makes sense for a lot of people. And here's how to use it as part of comprehensive financial planning. And I was obviously like, you come into the industry, like no one comes into the industry because they just like really want to sell life insurance. Maybe some people, but
they're
not really.
If
right?
you do, you're weird.
Yeah. So most people want to do it for like the financial planning, right? The investments, insurance is a piece of that, but you want to help people retire successfully. You want to help people that are just starting out, like make good decisions so they're not caught in cycles of poverty or whatever else. But when you work for an insurance company, you have quotas that you have to sell X amount of their product or you can't work there anymore. And thankfully in the first 3 years, at least where we were, those quotas were pretty low. And so it was premium based quotas. So it wasn't like a number of policies or anything like that. You got to sell X amount of premium every year to keep your job. And then at year 3, it was a cliff and that would skyrocket. And so you could, so I would, help people get like the right term insurance, right? If you got kids, like I've got kids, right? I've got term insurance. My wife's got term insurance. If we pass away, my brother and sister-in-law will take care of them, but they're my financial responsibility. And so we want to make sure that they're cared for financially, even if something were to happen to us. Term life insurance is cheap. It's for 20 years, right? Expires. By the time that expires, I shouldn't need any more insurance. That's good to go. I have disability, like some of those other kind of things. There are some insurances that we need, and you could kind of sell enough of that kind of insurance to keep your job. But there's no way to hit that upper tier at the end of year 3 without selling whole life insurance. You can't sell enough term products. You can't sell enough disability to make that
What's
happen.
the commission difference on a whole life versus a term policy?
So they're usually where we are is it's basically 50%, and then some other bonuses and that kind of stuff if you hit certain production levels and whatnot. So the percentage is the same, but like, a term life policy for me was $24.
Yeah.
Whereas you're going to sell a whole life policy for way less death benefit for $200 a month, instead of $24 or $500 a month or whatever else. So, if someone's getting paid, $200 to sell a term policy or $3,000 to sell a whole life policy, like which one are they going to choose?
Yeah.
Right. And I want to be clear right up front. Like I have nothing against sales.
Yeah.
Right. Nothing happens in business until a sale is made, right? Like sales is like I still sell, I just sell a service now instead of a product. And so I have nothing against sales. I have nothing against commissions either, right? Commissions is a great way to incentivize people to do well. I think you guys were even talking about this on an episode I was listening to a bit ago on people that work on commission, right? Yeah. They provide a better service. They're more motivated. They're not just that, I get paid either way, so I don't care how much effort I put into this.
Yep.
And so I have no problem with like commission in general and those kind of things. And I also have no problem with people who hold themselves out as an insurance agent selling insurance and they make a commission.
Yep.
Right? If you're State Farm or you're Allstate or whatever, like people know that you're going to sell that and make a commission and it's part of the deal, right? And I think in the same way, like if you go into like a Toyota dealer, right? And they say, hey, based on what you told us, we really think you should buy this Toyota. You're like, okay, yeah, I mean, that's what you're there for. And so you expect that. But if you go into a company that is holding themselves out as like an independent car dealer, hey, we carry all makes and models. We're going to ask you questions about your family, your needs, those kind of things. And then we're going to put you in the right car regardless of make, model, those kind of things, and make sure we get the right car for you, right? But then you learn behind the scenes that they have a deal with Toyota where they make more kickbacks, they make more commissions, and they have to sell a certain amount of Toyotas in the background in order to be in business. That's different, right? Because now you're not really getting that independent look. It's like it's quasi-independent because they can sell all these other ones, but really they're going to keep pushing the same type of car, all those kind of things. And that's where I have a problem is when you're holding yourself out as like independent advice, but in the background you're just shoveling product for a high commission, right? That to me is a distinction between people know you're on commission and people that don't know the difference. And so I always felt bad about, just like trying to find ways to force whole life into the situation. I would do like limited pay whole life policies that we pay on it for like 10 years. And the commission on that is like 30% instead of 50. And so I'd get paid less, but like the math of it just seemed to work better in my mind and I could justify it more for myself and all these things. So yeah, you try to find ways to make it fit without coming at the expense of the client, right? Without just trying to force the bigger policy to get the bigger premium and those kind of things. But I always knew this wave was coming that I'm going to sell way more. And there's no way I can do this ethically. Like, I don't believe it's a good product, and since then and so we went independent, left that company. A big group of us went and joined an independent broker dealer with no quotas. And it turns out that the moment you have no quotas, you tend to sell less, right? The moment you realize that you can do whatever you want and you're not pushed into doing a certain thing, the more you realize like, hey, this is not a good situation. And I've kind of evolved from thinking it's an okay product to fit in some situations to like now realizing like, hey, no one should own whole life.
So you're totally against it.
I'm completely against it.
We have to talk more about that.
In all forms.
Yeah. Okay.
It is, and people will always find new ways of like dressing it up and making it sound exciting. Like maybe I've heard like infinite banking. Yeah. And
be your own bank.
Yeah. It's lipstick on a pig.
Yeah. It's like keto is.
Okay. So let's just go right into it because I have people that I really, really respect. I was just having this conversation with a friend yesterday. People I really respect and I look up to, and they are very successful, and they are all about it, right? They're all in. They're doing it. They love it. And I have other people that I highly respect that are crazy successful that are totally against it. I don't know many people that are in the middle.
It's a polarizing stuff.
And it really, but I think it's because you have to be. It's such a high cost that you have to be bought in to understanding it. And I don't have a full understanding to have an opinion. And I've had people present it to me. I don't have it yet. But I'm just curious. Yeah. Just talk about it. Talk about what it is and why you're so against it.
Yeah. And so I think a common argument I hear from people who are for it, that they'll say like, well, hey, the people that are against it, they just don't understand it.
Sure.
I understand it.
Yeah.
I used to sell it. I've gotten all the sales literature on it. I've gotten all the presentations. I know how it works. I know how it works better than most people who sell it because they don't actually read the policies.
Yeah.
They don't actually read the fine print. They just look at the fancy projections and the non-guaranteed values and they're like, oh, look how great this could be, without really paying attention to what actually happens in real life. And again, is it the worst possible product ever? No, you could put all your money in a mattress and that would be worse than owning a whole life policy.
Yeah.
Right? You could put all your money in CDs and that would be worse than owning a whole life policy. But I don't think people are looking to be mediocre with their money.
Yeah.
Right? They want the best advice, the best strategies. They want their money to work the hardest for them, not just be like, okay. Right? And I think especially if you're paying a professional, you're kind of expecting them to give you that best advice, best strategies, not something they're claiming is the best, but it's just kind of meh. So my issues with it are a couple of things. One, life does not work out the same way people think it does, or that they think it's going to go, right? And so when you, like if you're doing like a Roth IRA, for example, you can pause that, increase it, decrease it, do whatever you want with it. It's completely flexible. And so you might be doing a budget as a family and say, yep, we've got $1,000 a month that we can put towards investing in all those things. And so you're going to max out 2 Roth IRAs, and then something happens in life and money gets tight, you can always pause that and go a different direction, right? When you sign up for a whole life policy or a universal life policy, one of these life insurance policies, you are committing to pay this premium for 20 years till age 65 or forever, right? And life just doesn't go linearly like that. You have ups and downs. You have good seasons and bad seasons and all those. And so what happens is a lot of people, they sign up for these things and then life changes and they can't afford them anymore. Or they can maybe still, they were doing a whole life and a Roth IRA, but now they can't afford to do both. And so the Roth drops off and they're still stuck with the whole life. And between those two, there's no contest. Like a Roth IRA is way better than a whole life. And here's the other thing, right? Like I've always said that like Roth IRAs, invested HSAs, some of these other strategies, these are bought, not sold. Like I explained to someone for 10 minutes what a Roth IRA does, or the power of investing your HSA instead of just leaving it in a bank. And they're like, oh yeah, that's awesome. Like it's immediate. They're all about it. They can see immediately how great it is for them, all the benefits, no drawbacks, all these things, and they're on board. You have to spend hours selling someone a whole life policy, right? Convincing them, overcoming objections, right? Doing all these things, trying to convince people that this is a good product and they should have it. The only people I know of that are in favor of them are the ones that sell them. If you go to any independent financial bloggers, non-insurance financial advisors, no one who doesn't sell them is for them. I mean, you can find very slim like outliers of, oh, we saw this one study where this CPA group recommended it, or this uber rich person uses it all the time, etc. But for the most part, the vast majority of people that recommend them are the people that sell them or work for the companies that do.
Can you talk about it in like there's plenty of real estate specific people out there that utilize them for real estate purposes and leveraging it. is there any, actually, first off, just for people who don't know, can you just explain the 60-second version of what a policy is, like where that money goes? Yeah. And then after that, about real estate specifically, if there is a time and I know you said there's not a time and place for it ever, but what is the case for it when you have these real estate guys that are doing it, that I look up to, that are leveraging this policy to buy more real estate?
Yep. So, and if we had more time and I could doodle, I could sell you a whole life. I could convince you to buy one.
No, you couldn't.
Maybe not you, but I can convince the average person
for sure
to get one.
Yeah.
Right? I know how to do this. I was successful at it. Like after I finally figure out how to incorporate it into a financial plan, right?
Yeah.
I could leverage my CFP credentials and like all this other stuff and doodle it out and make it seem like the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Yeah.
But basically what it is, so like a term life insurance policy, you pay a low premium. They give you like a $500,000 or $1 million death benefit. So if you die inside of 20 years, the insurance company will pay you out $1 million, right, to your beneficiaries. That'll be tax free. What like a whole life or a universal life, there's slight differences there, but in general, permanent life insurance has this one, it's permanent, it's not for a term, so you pay on it for life or pay on it till a certain amount and then it's paid up and then you still have it for life. And because of that, right, like what are the chances that like the three of us, we all look like we're in the same generation or at least within the same cohort, right? Like what are the chances actuarially that one of us is going to die in the next 20 years?
Pretty slim.
It's not high, right? Like the chance of any one of us dying or even any one of the three of us dying is real low. And so that's why they can charge $20-$30 a month for $1 million coverage because they know, hey man, you're just not going to die in the next. You might, but you're probably not. So we're happy to do that. And so they can sell a whole bunch of term lives to 10,000 of us. If one of us dies, they're fine because the premium of the rest of us 10,000 covered that one. And so it's just odds.
Just a math equation.
Yep. It's just a big math equation for them and law of large numbers. What are the chances that one of us is going to die eventually?
Good. 100%, baby.
100%, right?
Yeah.
Actually, all three of us will die eventually. And that's why I think that, I'm not a big fan of whole life policies, but you should definitely have your eternal life policy. So since you are going to die, they know they are going to pay that out. And so they obviously have to price it much more expensive just for the insurance piece of it because you are going to die eventually. But then they also have this cash value part on it, right? Where you're going to pay not just the extra expense of the permanent life insurance, but you're going to pay more. And a portion of that is going to go into this cash value account. That's going to grow. If it's a mutual company like Northwestern Mutual or Mass Mutual or Thrivent or all those, it'll pay dividends on that policy and that'll get reinvested back in the policy and it'll help the cash value grow more, blah, blah, blah. And then the benefit supposedly is that you can draw money out of this cash value at any time for any reason, tax-free, penalty-free. They'll still pay you interest on it. Your money can be making money even though you borrowed against it, all these things. And so, right, it's supposed to be this good tool for kind of midterm leveraging all these things. And people often pin it against like, well, hey, if you invest in the market, you can lose your money, right? Your value can go down, you can lose money, but this is guaranteed to always grow up. And so it's a good, secure, no, don't put all your, like no one who's at least claiming to be like a financial advisor would tell you to put all your money into whole life, right? Yeah. But diversify into it, have a portion of it in this nice guaranteed fund. My issues with it are, again, I want to give people the best strategies, not just like an okay one. And when you run it up against just investing, it pales in comparison, right? If you look at, people often say, well, you can lose your money in investing, but what people don't know is that you've already lost your money investing in a whole life policy for 15 years. That's how long it takes for the cash value to break even on what you've contributed, right? The stock market is positive basically 100% of the time over a 15, 17-year period. And so the chance, and if it's not positive from the year 1 to year 15, it's because you are measuring it literally to the bottom of like a huge bear market and just wait like 2 more years and it will be double. And so you'll be fine. And so the amount of time that it takes to actually build up any money that you can use in there is years. And again, you are committing to put money in this thing for years before it becomes useful at all. And life can change a whole bunch. You can access, it's just not very much. So usually like the first 2 years of premiums you put in there, nothing to show for it. Right, you're putting that. Let's say you put a $500 a month in it, $6,000 a year. Then a year 2, you've put $12,000 in there, and you maybe have $300 of cash value available to you. I don't know what the math is on that, but I think it's something like a 90% loss. Mm-hmm. You can't lose 90% in the stock market. Like, Bitcoin, sure, but like
Yeah.
all the
also
Bitcoin.
make them now.
Yeah. But like, that's volatile enough that you could do that. If you're investing in mainstream, best businesses in the world, you're not gonna be down 90%.
Yeah.
And so like you are yes, it's a guaranteed investment, guaranteed to lose you money for the first 2 years, and then after that it'll start growing. But since you're starting at such a loss, right? You're putting $6,000 into a year, you have nothing to show for after the first 2 years. It takes 12 to 17 years for that to catch up, just for you to break even. And then your mid to long term rate of return on the cash value is usually 3 to 6%. Right? 3 to 6% is a good short term rate of return, right? Like, you can get 5% in a money market account right now, 5% in CDs, right? Interest rates are high, it's good. That's a horrible long term investment rate, right? Mainstream equities, 10%. Real estate done well, you can be better than 3 to 5%, right?
Yeah.
And so if your time horizon then is 15 to 20 years, that's when you want to be able to use this. Like, what's better, to be able to use, $20,000 of cash value tax free, or to have $50,000 in just cash that maybe you have to pay some taxes on, but you have it. And that's where like people don't, they tout like, so again, I'm an enrolled agent. That means I have the federal tax license to do taxes and to represent taxpayers before the IRS and those kind of things. And people often tout like the tax planning aspects of whole life. Like, hey, it's, you can use it tax free. It's a great, mitigate your taxes, diversify your taxability, all those things. And you want to pay less taxes. Who doesn't want to pay less taxes, right? But I think people confuse the goal in that the goal is not to pay the least amount of taxes in life and finances. If you wanted to pay the least amount of taxes, take a really bad job, keep all your money in cash so you earn no interest and no return, and you will pay almost no taxes. That's not the goal, though. The goal is to have the most amount of money after paying taxes. And whole life is not a great way to do that. So even if you have a much higher rate of return, even if you're paying taxes on that, like in a brokerage account or wherever else, you will still end up with more money to actually use even after taxes than you would use in a whole life. And that's the other thing that people don't know. Like, you can borrow against, if you don't want to take out your investments to take the capital gains, like in a brokerage account, and you want to be able to, borrow money tax-free, leverage that to do more real estate or whatever else, you can borrow against a brokerage account. Yeah. It's called margin.
Yeah.
And you can borrow against that too and not pay tax.
Up to what % of the value?
It depends on what you have invested it in. So probably not as high as a % as that. But again, you are building value from day one investing in a brokerage account. You don't have 2 years of no returns to then catch up from. And so the actual amount of money you would have access to, even though it's not a higher %, right? It's a lower % of a much higher number. And so you would just have more money to do. Now, the one caveat would be, and this is what they'll often reference, like rich people or really sophisticated people, that they use whole life, right? Or they're doing these things. You kind of mentioned that before, right? Yep. There is a huge difference. People say like, oh, Warren Buffett does this, or Bill Gates does this, or, whatever
Banks
else.
do this, people.
Yeah, banks do this. Like, we're not an institution.
Yeah.
We're not like, banks don't even have their own money. They just shuffle other people's money around, right? Yeah. So what a bank does, and what a household with kids to feed and a mortgage to pay and all these other things, what they do, like, totally different, right? People who are millionaires or billionaires and can just like, buy stuff like that, like what they do with their money and what the average household does with their money doesn't compute, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a big difference between people who have already maxed out all their retirement accounts, make too much money to use other retirement accounts, like, are in the highest capital gains tax brackets, all these things because they make $500,000 a year, blah, 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 all these things. What they do with their money may be different than what the average family does.
Let's talk about those people. So is there a case for it with those people?
I still don't think so.
Okay.
No, I still think that you are better off, because I think that one of the main way to build wealth in America, at least where we live,
real estate.
we
can do debate topics.
No, yeah, this would be fun. Go. No, I would contend the main way to build wealth is to be an owner. Is to own particularly income producing things like businesses. Real estate can be in there as well. I would also contend, though, that the people who, you could also be really bad at owning real estate.
For sure. Totally.
Right? I've got some clients like that who have they're in a horrible rate of return. They can't get out underneath it because they already depreciate. They've owned them for 30 plus years. They've already depreciated them to nothing, and they make 4 or 5% on them. And if they sell them, then they have to all that depreciation recapture and all those, right? Real estate works really well if you're going to hold it all the way till death and get a step up in basis. As soon as you got to sell those things, you get all that depreciation recapture. I've never heard a real estate bro talk about net investment tax. That extra 4% that you need to pay, 3.8% that you need to pay. If you sell a property, you have all that depreciation recapture, and now you got to not only pay all that at your highest ordinary income tax brackets, pushing you up in new brackets, also a net investment tax on top of that. You just don't hear about that in real estate bro TikTok videos, right?
Yeah.
It just doesn't come up. Now, again, you can do real estate really well, and I think it's very possible to get a better return in real estate than investing in the general market.
Yeah.
I'd be the first one, as someone who doesn't do real estate, who doesn't advise people on real estate, I'd be the first one to admit that. But I think the real value comes in there. And actually, I think the one guy from the Milwaukee area or whatever who was on here, who's got all the rentals, right? He said this, that what really changed for him is when he started looking at his rentals as a business.
Yeah.
And so I would actually contend that the best way to build wealth is to be a business owner, and your business might be real estate.
Yep.
Right? But when you treat your real estate like a business, not just as like a passive investment, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a difference, right? Because that's the other thing. People always talk about real estate is like, oh, it's passive income, bro. Like, you got to get your passive income. And like, that's technically just a tax term.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing passive about owning your first rental. Nope.
Yeah.
You're very actively involved in that, getting it done, getting renters in there, all those kind of things. That's not passive, like just throwing money in your 401k and just letting it go. That's technically passive, right? You can just do that. But if you treat it as a business, if you are smart about it, if you learn these things, you got some entrepreneurial spirit, you can be really successful in real estate. You guys have proven that. You know that. I don't need to convince you of that.
Yeah.
A lot of people can't, don't have the time, don't have the energy, don't have the interest in learning all those things. So the next best place to be a business owner, if you can't start your own business, your own real estate business, your own financial planning firm business, your own festival foods business, then you can own other people's businesses, right? And you can be a co-owner of the best business in the world by investing in the market. And the way that we teach it then is we don't talk about investing in the stock market, because I think when people think about that, it's just like this nebulous thing that you throw money into, and it's kind of like gambling, and they picture, a bunch of white dudes on the New York Stock Exchange like waving tickets and yelling buy and sell and all these things, and it just feels like a total cluster, and they don't really get it, and they don't really understand what investing is, and they think it's about buying low and selling high and all these things. And that there is a form of investing that is that. The way that we teach it is we try to change people's mindsets to think of themselves as business owners, and to become co-owners of all these great businesses that we all use every day. And I think when you make that shift and you look at yourself as a business owner versus like an investor or someone who's in the stock market, then it changes your outlook on drops in the market, on the panic that people will often put out there, all the scary stories that are out there. One example I'll use with clients all the time is so we have here in La Crosse, right? We've got Quick Trip, owned by the Zitlow family, right? You should have them on here sometime. That'd be cool. Somebody from there, that'd be great. So right, they own this business. They've built it up successfully. I think at one point there was like a Quick Trip being opened like every 11 days or something like that. I don't know, like one best convenience store in the nation.
Yeah.
I love Quick Trip.
Yep.
It's great. And I just happened to notice, right, that the beginning of 2022, when Russia invaded Ukraine and oil prices went nuts, and there's huge existential crisis to the core part of their business, that the Zitlow family wasn't like, oh crap, we got to sell this business before it tanks. Oh crap, we got to get out of this before it all goes down. I'm sure that impacted them, right? But they know, like, no, we are business owners. We own this business. Things might get tight. We may have to change some things. We may need to lay some people off. Maybe we'll actually be good and we can hire more people. Who knows? But they're going to adapt. They hire the best people in the world. They, all these things. And it seems like they're doing just fine, right? I don't know their financials, but it doesn't seem to have affected them that much. And so in the same way, when we think of ourselves as business owners instead of just stock investors or whatever else, then we just look at swings the same way, right? When COVID happens, when the next big crisis comes, we don't lose money as business owners. We may have a temporary decline in the value of our business if we were to sell it, but we don't lose until we sell, right? The only way to turn that temporary decline into a permanent loss is to sell our shares of that business when the value is low. If we just hold on like any good business owner would through the thick and thin, I'm sure you guys have had ups and downs in your business, right? You don't just sell the business the first time you hit any sign of trouble. You hold on and you know that's a good business. You make adjustments and you weather the storm and you come out better on the other end. And all the wealthiest people out there, right? their wealth comes from, like, the very richest people in the world, that it's because they started, Microsoft or Amazon or those kind of things, right? And a lot of the ones that have diversified into real estate and own real estate businesses still built that through something else. Some of them, obviously, there's plenty of examples of people who built it up from real estate from the beginning as a successful business all the way up, right? So if you want to build wealth, you can start your own business, buy into someone else's business doing that, or if you don't have time or entrepreneurial spirit to do that, then minimally you should become a business owner of the publicly available ones. Instead of, so you can be a business owner, you can be a loaner, right? You can either own the businesses or you can loan to them. You can buy bonds and loan your money to businesses. You can buy treasury bills and loan your business to your money to the government. You can loan your money to insurance companies by getting a whole life policy. But that's not going to build wealth. You're going to build wealth through owning things. And so once you know that, it's hard to go back and be like, yeah, a 5% long-term rate of return is great. We should put people into that.
Yeah. I guess the only pushback I would have is, yes, you are a percent owner in that business, but you also have no decision-making ability. So, like, coming from a real estate guy like myself, that doesn't sit right with me if I'm investing a bunch of my money, my life savings into these companies, but I have no decision-making ability versus I can go decide what I want to do with my property, and I can go see it, and I can fix it up. And if I get a crappy tenant and the value's down, I can fix it up, and the value can immediately go back. You know what I mean? Yep. So, and I agree with you that it's not passive, but it sure is more passive than a W-2 job.
Yep.
And sure does allow you more freedom and for sure more cash flow than you would get in the stock market. So,
But then the other perspective too is not like what you said. You want to have control.
Yeah.
The alternative is like you are a business leader. You own a business. You have the business brain, the business mind. For the person who doesn't have that and doesn't want to be that, then that's where like, yeah, I don't get to have say in it. Maybe I shouldn't have say because I don't know. I like my decisions wouldn't help to lead to growth or business, whatever. You know what I mean? Like for sure. For
I'm just speaking for me personally.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, right? So like the first preference for building wealth is to be really good at starting and running your own business. Yeah. That's going to get you more than investing in someone else's because there's a lot of other hands in the cookie jar at that point, right? And like, just to be perfectly candid, I hardly have anything invested personally. I've been putting all my money back into
whole life.
I signed up back in the day, and I just got to keep paying those premiums. No, I've been putting all money back into my business, right? Because I can earn a better rate of return growing this thing and helping more people than I can by putting it in the market and averaging 10% over a long period of time, right? And so, if you have those skills, I think we can all agree that most people don't have the skills to run a business, right? That's why there are more people that work for a business than people that own businesses, which it has to be that way, right? You can't have the 200 million workers in the U.S. We can't have 180 million businesses, they wouldn't work. There's synergies in working with people and for people, and people have complementary skills, and you put them all together in a business, and that's what makes it run, right? And so again, I'm not the kind of person that tries to convince someone who's running a successful business or is being successful running a real estate business, hey, you shouldn't invest in real estate because the stock market's better and it's easier and all these things. Like, no, if you're being successful, keep doing that, right? Yeah. I've also talked to I've met with enough people and seen all the way down through all their finances of failed real estate investors, of failed business owners, not even failed, just like meh, like they own a meh business, right? They own a meh real estate portfolio, and it's just not as good. So if you can beat it, go do that. Yeah. And if you can't, then the next best thing is to own other people's businesses and not put it in whole life, not put it in CDs, not put it in bonds, and learn to develop the fortitude to go through the ups and downs, because the only way you earn the ups is to go through the downs. And not everyone can do that. That's why people buy whole life. That's why people buy bonds. That's why people do all these things. But I think a lot of it comes from people not understanding what investing really is. And so that's what my podcast is all about. That's what a lot of our messaging is about, is just helping people change their perspective on anything. Because I don't think my value is, hey, I'm going to pick the best stock that's out there, or I know which mutual fund is going to outperform this next quarter or this next year. Like, nobody knows those things, right? But if we can change people's mindsets to be more comfortable with investing, to spend less of their money going into 4% whole life and get more of it going into 10% equities, investing in the best business in the world. And you're doubling their rate of return, which octuples their results after 30 years.
Yep.
That's pretty cool. And so, I'm not trying to convince people who are successful doing other things to come do this, but for all the people who are below that, get them up to at least that level, because anyone can do that, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to be an entrepreneur. You don't have to have a certain, pedigree or come from money or any of those kind of things. Anyone can do that. And so that's my main target, is helping those people.
And so you mentioned your podcast. You also have the book. So what was was that the motivation of wanting to educate people on all this stuff, or why did you decide to write that book and then start the podcast?
Yeah, I think so when we meet with people, we'll meet with people several times at the beginning to get everything organized and whatnot. It might take a few, 4 to 8 hours of meetings. But there's just like way more information that you need to get out to people, right? There's a lot, you ask any financial question, then you'll get 1,000 different opinions on it, right? And I truly think that true financial success doesn't come from, there's a lot of people out there that try to learn by Googling, right? They hear about a topic and they just Google it. And they're like, oh, what's a Roth conversion? They Google it. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, what's an HSA? They Google it. Oh, what's a whole life? They Google it. Find out it's horrible. Don't do it. But really it comes from having a strategy that you follow for a long period of time, right? Hopping back and forth doesn't tend to work real well, right? It's kind of like when you're driving on the freeway and, you're stuck in traffic and you notice the left lane is like kind of whizzing by you. And so you're like, forget this. And you veer into the left lane. And then it immediately stops, and then the lane you were just in starts, right? And you start tracking like a van or something, like, oh, I was right behind that person. Like, how am I doing now? And you get farther and farther behind. You keep switching lanes, and then that guy's so far out, you're like, F it. I guess I'll look at this truck. Am I beating them? I don't know if you guys have ever done that. Maybe it's just me.
For sure. 100%.
Totally.
Yeah. They know, the people in front of you know that you just switched over, and they slow down.
Oh, yeah. It's designed to fool you. And so, I'm not saying that mine is the only, I'm the prophet. I have the only way to financial success. There's actually a few good strategies out there that'll get you there. There's way more horrible strategies, right? But there's a half a dozen good investment strategies, good financial planning strategies, and I am an evangelist of one of them, right? Mm-hmm. But what I'm trying to do in particular is get people to just buy into at least one of those good strategies and then just stick with it. Because even the other good ones, you can't keep hopping back and forth between them. Right, you can't be saving up for your first real estate deal and then jump over here and buy Bitcoin at the peak and then lose it and make, I guess I'll switch back over to real estate and do it just doesn't work. If you want to be successful in real estate, you need to be driven. Like, I want to do real estate. I'm going to save for it. I'm going to eat, breathe, and sleep real estate until I make this happen. Right, but it doesn't work to switch back and forth. And so I am, my podcast is just me monologuing. So if you hate this podcast episode, you're going to hate listening to that podcast because it's just me talking. But I kind of think of it more as like a church where you are preaching the same message week after week, or not the same message, but the same viewpoint, the same beliefs.
Layers to the same theme.
Yep. To just reinforce over time, over and over again, the things that we talk about in person, to give you more information than I could give you in person. And then the book is just like kind of the best parts of that in the most concise way of showing people, right? Because, my clientele is mostly folks over 50 who are within 10 years plus or minus of retirement, right? And a big thing for them is most people think that as you approach retirement, you should get more and more conservative and you should get less and less in stocks and you should put more and more in bonds or annuities or whole life insurance or CDs and these kind of things. And I just disagree. I think retirement's not the finish line. It's mile marker 13.1 on a marathon. You still have 2 or 3 decades to go after that. And during that time, the cost of everything you want and need to buy is going to double or triple. And so you need your money continuing to grow. You need that business owner mindset. You need these things even in retirement. And so that's what the book kind of teaches. That's what a lot of my podcast teaches. It's geared, it's retirement and mentorship together. Mm-hmm. Just trying to mentor people to and through retirement, like help you establish a good plan to be on it, and then just help you keep working the plan, keep staying the course, keep doing what you're doing. Because that's how you're going to find success over time. It's like anything else, right? You can't work out 3 times and get a 6-pack. You can't eat right for a week and then expect results. Like almost all of success in life is just doing the right things over and over again for a long time.
So how did you craft that though? Because you started out doing the one way. So how did you personally come to the conclusion on, hey, this is my lane? Like how did you eventually fall into, I think this is the best strategy?
Yep. And it's certainly as with a lot of good messages, I think it's just it's like combining and repackaging ideas from other people, right?
Most about that, yeah.
Yeah, most of my ideas are not original ideas, right? But maybe originally packaged in a way that people have never heard before. Mm-hmm. So, I've been following this one guy for a long time. Nick Murray. He's like 80 years old. And so he was a financial advisor for like 40 years. And now he's been two advisors for like another 20 years. So he's seen it all, right? And so, I often joke with people who are, approaching retirement, and you're like, hey, I don't know if you can I don't know if you can tell by looking at me, but I'm younger than you are. And, I'll be doing this for a while, and I don't have, 3 decades of experience, but I can lean on people who do, right? And so he's got a lot of that same kind of messaging. So I get a lot from him. Other industry people that kind of fall on that side of the fence, I listen to them, kind of get those ideas, come up with my own ways of explaining those, the own way of just communicating that with clients. Because I think a big part of being a successful financial planner, and which in my mind means that your clients are successful, right? That's the only way you're a successful financial planner. Let's get that straight, right? You're not successful because you make a lot of money. You're successful when you make your clients successful. And to be a successful planner means that your clients are successful. And one of the best ways to do that is to be good at communicating that, right? Like you need to, it's not enough to just know all the technical stuff behind the scenes. If you can't communicate that in a way that inspires clients to action, it doesn't matter, right? So one of the things that we talk about is kind of this knowledge to action and like what's missing there in the middle, right? Some people don't do the things they should do in finances because they just don't know what to do, right? Personal finance isn't taught, or at least not required in high school, college, anything, right? There's some electives you can take, but it's not required.
Crazy?
I personally, my personal conspiracy theory is that the insurance companies, the banks, the credit card companies all lobby to keep it out of the required curriculum. Because why are we required to take dance and theater appreciation?
We just talked about it last episode.
yeah, which maybe I haven't heard yet because maybe I haven't posted yet. But why are we required to take those? But we're not required to take personal finance, which we're going to use every day for the rest of our lives.
Yeah,
it's got to be a conspiracy, right?
But you'd also have to be very careful in who's teaching it.
Yes,
you know what I mean? Because there are so many different opinions and ways that if there is a curriculum, you just have to be very careful.
Who created the
who creates it? You know what I mean?
Dude, you get one of those bums building curriculums and telling people whole life is good and stuff.
But I think there should be entire degrees just around money, like how to know money.
Yep.
Different investments, different options, different insurance policies, different everything, and then let people make their own. Obviously, there's disciplines that work. Like you said, there's several paths that work. You recommend a couple of them, right? But just I think it's crazy that we don't offer that in school to at least tell people what the paths are.
Yep.
That'll be our question of the day for this episode. Is it a conspiracy?
Yeah.
There you go.
It is. We answered it.
Yeah.
So I think that's just part of it. So that's where the book, the podcast come from, is just wanting to get better at communicating these things for people and to move people from so first to teach people, right? To grow people's knowledge of finances, because a lot of stuff they just don't know, right? And then you want to ultimately inspire people to act, because it doesn't matter if you know what a Roth IRA is if you never fund it, right? It doesn't matter if you know how great an invested HSA is if you never invest it. There's that saying, right? If knowledge were enough, we'd all be billionaires with six-pack abs, right? The knowledge is out there, available free. There's nothing you're going to learn from me that you couldn't go Google.
For sure.
Right? It's all for free, right? People pay me a lot of money to do their financial planning stuff. It's not because of the knowledge I'm giving, although that helps, and we do that through the podcast and one-on-one coaching and all that stuff. It is getting people to act. And for me, the missing link has always been between like what causes someone to know something and not act on it, and versus someone who knows something and actually acts on it, is belief. That's the missing ingredient for me. Like if you know something but you don't truly believe that it's really good for you, then you just won't do it, right? And that's why I don't like people be like, oh, you don't need to read a book, just like read the Cliff Notes, or just watch a quick YouTube video and you can learn everything you need to know about real estate investing. No, you can't, right? This is why Dave Ramsey is so successful. Not because he wrote a 5-hour book, but because he has a constant radio station that's constantly reinforcing that message, helping people believe it, right? Because unless you believe that you should get out of debt like a gazelle, you won't put in the sacrifice, you won't do the things to do that, right? Unless you believe, not just know that, like everyone know, I mean, not everyone, but most people know that real estate can be a great investment.
Yeah.
But until you believe that, and live, breathe, sleep that, you're not going to do the things that you need to do to get that done. And so part of me is teaching you what to do, inspiring people to act on that plan and all that stuff, but also just bridging that gap by helping people believe that equity investing is great, that they should do financial planning, that you should look to save on lifetime taxes, not just get your deduction for last year, those types of things. So that, to me, is what the book, podcast, all that stuff is about.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, it's the same thing with faith in Jesus, right?
Absolutely.
There's a mental assent, I know, and then believe would be, there's that thing when you encounter Jesus, I know that I know.
Yep.
And that's with anything that we hold a conviction is, when you believe it, it's I know that I know. It's just, I know it. You can't do it.
Can't fight it.
So.
Do you believe in the 401k?
Yeah, for most people.
You framed that
so
like you were going to ask him about like a personal belief.
It is. I'm curious to know.
So the 401k is a tax vehicle. It's not an investment vehicle. So a lot of people don't, right? They think like, I have an IRA. I've got a 401k. I'm already good. And you see this actually a lot with clients that come in that they're kind of curious. They don't really think they need our help because I've already got the 401k. I've already got a Roth IRA. I've already got like all these different accounts are merely how the taxes are handled in those accounts. A 401k is not an investment. A 401k is an account that holds investments. So I don't believe, I mean, they exist, right? But I don't believe that it's good for people to hold a 401k that is in bond funds or in guaranteed funds or in target date funds. The vast majority of people in the U.S. are in target date funds, which are funds that start out like 90% equities, 90% business owner, right? And 10% bonds. And the closer you get to retirement to that date, they ramp down and become more and more bonds and less equities. And I think they are the dumbest investment around. They are created not to help end investors. They are created to cover the butt of the people producing them, right? Because what they found is that they would help people invest. They would offer a 401k. They would go in there. They'd put in the S&P 500. The S&P 500 would go down 30%. They'd pull it out. They would lose 30%, and then they would try to sue the company for losing them money. And so they said, okay, well, we'll create this default fund that we can put you in, and you know, you're going to spend 2 minutes enrolling in your 401k, and we're going to dump you in this fund, and the 2 minutes that you spent is going to determine the vast majority of your lifetime wealth. Right? People spend more time like planning their lunch than they do their lifetime investments, which is insane to me.
Yeah.
Right? Or maybe you go to another financial professional and they say, well, hey, we're not just going to put you in a default fund. We're going to do a customized portfolio for you. And so here's a risk tolerance questionnaire, and it takes you 5 minutes. And at the end of that 5 minutes, it's going to produce a score, and then we're going to invest you based on that score. And so you filling out a questionnaire for 5 minutes is, again, going to determine your lifetime investment success. That seems absurd to me.
Yeah.
Right? Because you taking that quiz in a comfy office chair with someone else watching you do it is not the same experience you're going to have watching the values of your businesses go down 30%. So what you say on there, it just doesn't compute, right? And so for me, that's what we're trying to do, is help people actually spend more than 5 minutes on their lifetime investments. Like, actually understand what a 401k is, actually understand what investing is, get good advice on how you should do it that's not biased by sales quotas and some of these other things. And if you don't want to manage it yourself, like, you can delegate it, but you shouldn't delegate it to the point where you don't know anything about it. You still need to understand it the first time to make good decisions, right? No one can do your push-ups for you. No one can no one can eat healthy for you. In some ways, like, even as a financial planner, there's certain things I can't do for you. You still need to know these things. You still need to make decisions, and they need to be in your best interest. But we can at least, get them understanding these things for the first time and doing it correctly. So do I believe in 401ks? I mean, they for sure exist. And most people are not invested properly in them. And they're putting a vast majority of their lifetime savings into accounts that are not optimized for their specific life and what they're going for. And a lot of financial professionals can't touch them. They're not legally allowed to give advice on an outside account, which again is absurd to me, because how are you going to give someone financial advice when you can't give them advice on their largest account that they have? We're not don't have that same restriction, and so we give 401k advice all the time, and you got to get that right.
Yeah.
So opposite, so not what you're opposed to. We've talked a little bit of the things you don't like. But for you or your typical client, then what are you recommending? Not the whole complete logistics of everything that's happening, But like just simply
Basic personal finance.
Somebody comes in, and what are you directing them towards?
Yep. Part of it is building the good, and it depends, right? So again, most of my clients are approaching retirement, and what we're going to tell them is different than what we would maybe talk about with people starting out in their career and those kind of things. But you got to have good personal habits. You got to be able to save. You got to not be like neck deep in debt. Like there's some of that stuff that you adjust with certain people. But for a lot of things that we're changing, it is teaching people, right? Spending a couple of hours with people, and then a lot more if they want to listen to my podcast, read the book, or whatever else. Like teaching them what investing really is, why we're going to invest them the way they're going to, and then implementing that with them, getting their 401k reallocated, getting their Roth IRAs, all those things, so that, right? Because the difference between 6% and 10%, right? So think about this, right? Let's say you have $100,000 and you invest it in an account making 6% for 30 years. At that rate, $100,000 will turn into like $600,000 over 30 years. 6%, 30 years, $600,000. Sextuples. You're like, okay, that's pretty good. What if instead you took that $100,000 and you put it in something making 10%? Right? What would that do over 30 years? And I think logically we think, okay, well, if 100,000 at 6% turned into 600, then 100,000 at 10% should turn into $1 million. But that's not how compounding works. That same 100,000 turns into almost $2 million over that same period, because just the way that like our minds think linearly, that's not how compounding works, right? Mm-hmm. And so the difference between getting someone even from 8% to 9% is hundreds of thousands of dollars over the course of their lifetime, right? And so just knowing that, and knowing the difference between not being in a target date fund but being in actually a good portfolio. We spend a lot of time helping people save on lifetime taxes, right? Like and I gave it away already, but like what's your biggest lifetime expense over your life versus the average person? It's taxes. I mean, I already gave it away, but like most people think it's their mortgage.
Yeah, I was right. Say house.
Yep. That's what a lot of people think, because their biggest like monthly payment that they actually see going out, they don't see all the withholdings that are happening on their check before they even get the money, right? Your mortgage is eventually paid off. And then what do you keep paying even after your mortgage is paid off?
Good old property.
Your property taxes, right? Income taxes, property taxes, Social Security, Medicare, all these things. It is by far the biggest expense that anyone's going to have. And so you have, just your average tax preparer that are doing a really good job looking backwards, looking at the rearview mirror at what happened last year, right? We just got through tax season. And they're saying, hey, how much did you earn last year? What deductions could you maybe have? What credits could you maybe get? How do we make sure that you pay the least amount of taxes last year, right? And then they're not looking forward at all. But you're going to pay more taxes going forward than you did last year. And so what we're doing is we're looking through the windshield and saying, hey, what are you likely to pay over your lifetime? And what are the strategies that we can do to minimize that lifetime tax bill? And that may involve paying more taxes now, right? In America, we're a big fan of just kicking the can down the road and worrying about it later, right? That's what rental depreciation is, right? We're just going to kick that can down the road, and hopefully we can 1035 that or 1031 that into a new property later on, or maybe we can die with it and we'll get a step up in basis and it'll be fine. But in the meantime, let's just kick those taxes down the road and not have to pay them now. Let's, IRAs, 401ks, let's kick that tax bill down the road and worry about it then. And what most people don't realize is that for a lot of people, they're looking at a tax tsunami coming in retirement of all those IOUs to the government that they've been writing over a 40-year career that are now all going to start coming due.
And you're being forced to draw on even if you don't need to.
Correct. Yep. Yeah. Yep. And so you can wait around and react to the government and pull the money out when they force you to, and then put it back into an account that you're going to pay taxes on every year. Or you can proactively do Roth conversions, pay the taxes now and let it grow tax-free forever, right? You can proactively fund an HSA and invest that and let that grow triple tax-free forever. There's just things like that, just teaching people the strategies they need, not just to save it once, but to save it forever. And I've always thought, like, man, most people who are listening to this are probably doing some kind of saving into retirement. And I'm not trying to get clients, because I would assume I don't know who listens to this, right? Probably most of them are not 50 plus.
Just my mom and his mom.
Perfect. There we go. Yeah. And they stopped a few episodes ago.
My mom's still trying to catch up.
I'll get to it.
Yeah.
So I'm not even trying to get clients, because I don't even work with our population, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But most people are just throwing money into accounts without any plan, any strategy, any idea of what they're doing. And I would just say, hey, would it possibly be worth it to pause even for 1 year, just to reduce what you're putting into accounts haphazardly and instead invest in a plan, right? Either taking the time to learn it all yourself, or hiring someone else out to do that, who can do that planning for you, show you the way, just tell you exactly what to do, and then actually go do those things And would you be better off in the long run having spent 1 year investing in yourself and in your financial planning and then running with it the right way than just kind of floundering around for 30 years? And one of the main things, so for any younger people, right, one of the main refrains that I always get from my older clients when we go through this stuff is like, oh, I wish I'd known this 20 years ago. I wish I'd known this 30 years ago. We would have had millions of dollars more if we just done a couple of these minor changes, right? And we kind of think about it like if you're on a plane in Los Angeles and you're trying to go to New York, right? And your plane's aimed that direction, it's going to take off. It's a few-hour flight. If the nose of that plane is off by just a few degrees, you won't notice that on the ground, right? But if you continue in that direction, you'll end up in Miami, right? And so tiny ticks, especially if you're on like tiny changes, right? Just getting your 401k invested the right way just once and then running with it for 30 years has miles of difference down the road. And I think way more people should just make that investment once and then you can continue to do it yourself and DIY it after that. But getting that one-time plan is, I think, invaluable. Totally biased, of course.
Yeah.
Do you see real estate, like you can't advise on real estate, but do you recommend that for some people as being part of that holistic strategy, like specifically from a tax perspective too, of utilizing cost segregation and stuff like that to, in some cases, completely eliminate taxes? Like, do you encourage that to people as another vehicle?
If they want to, I think that to do real estate right, you have to be all in on real estate, but you need to be like in enough to do it. You can't just be like, oh yeah, real estate sounds like a great idea, so I'm just going to pick up this random duplex over here and just like on a whim. I think
you can be somewhere. I don't think so. I think you could be somewhere in the middle. I mean, even if somebody buys, like I'm big on telling people to buy owner-occupied duplexes, especially young people and stuff like that. Like, you do that for your first 5 working years. You buy a new place every year. You have 10 units. You hold on to those for 30 years. They're going to triple in value. They're going to be paid off. You're going to have millions of dollars plus enough cash flow to live on with just taking 5 years and buying 5 duplexes. Hire a property manager to do the management if you don't want to do it. And I don't know. I just think that that's such a important part that I don't think you have to be a crazy sophisticated real estate investor to be successful at it.
No, in the same way you don't have to be a finance major or financial advisor to be a successful equity investor either,
yeah.
Right. I think so. A couple things, and again, partly because I work just with an older population where if they haven't already done this, it's usually not on the table, right? So this morning I was meeting with someone who's got a rental. It's appreciated nicely. It's out in Washington. She has someone else managing it. And like over the next 20, 30 years, like the wealth creation on that piece of real estate will be quite good.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, she needs the full cash flow now to retire and to live off that. And because she just started a 30-year mortgage 3 years ago, she has 27 years left before she can actually realize the full rental income from that property. And so the actual
she refied.
Yeah.
Yep. So she got the cash.
Yeah, but she had only bought it a few years before that. I think she bought in 2017.
So she hasn't owned it for a while.
Nope, hasn't owned it for a long time.
Okay.
And so like there's good appreciation in there. But she cannot retire now. She wants to retire next year, and she can if she sells it, takes all that appreciation out, puts in something else that can generate full income without the mortgage dragging it down. It might actually be a worse long-term ROI than keeping it. Like just total return on investment after 30 years might be better off keeping it. But because she can't take the full income off of it because she's playing a property manager, taxes, mortgage, all those things, it can't cash flow for her in a way that we need it. So I actually like the investment. It actually has done better and probably would continue to do better than the general equity investing going forward.
She just bought it too late.
She bought it too late.
Yeah.
Yep. So, right. So maybe for younger people who are 30 years out plus from retirement, who can get it, who can get paid off rentals and have that be a great real estate income later on, I could totally see that, right? The other thing that I always look at, though, is like, what is your actual after-tax rate of return on it? Because you can see some of these numbers, and again, some of these numbers look really great, and you look at, hey, man, we bought this house for X way back in the day, and now it's worth Y, and like, look at that, it's amazing. But you just do the math on it, and it's like a 4% appreciation. It's just been owned long enough that the numbers look really big, and so you've had someone like, I bought a house for back in the 70s for $85,000, and now it's worth $300,000. Like what a great investment. And that same $85,000 would be worth $4 million.
But if you're leveraged on it, then you have the debt service on it. You're hopefully getting cash flow every single month in addition to that. And if you 1031, which I would recommend every single person doing, there's no sense in selling just to get cash, like cash out refi if you want cash. 1031, you shouldn't pay tax your entire life on your real estate.
Yep. And again, so if you buy real estate, that is good, that is appreciated, that is cash flow, and all these things to get you that rate of return that you need, that is better than investing, you should do that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, again, what I just keep seeing is that you have some people that, because they're so enamored with the tax-free part of it, they're getting a 5% tax-free rate of return on it, and they're like, oh, it's tax-free. It's tax-free. It's tax-free. It is better to get a 10% rate of return that you pay 20% tax on than to get a 5% rate of return that you pay no tax on. Right?
Yeah.
The math is just there.
For sure.
You just have more money. So again, now you can get a 12% annualized rate of return tax-free on real estate done well. You can get a 15. You can have some that only give 8, right? I'm sure you've got a portfolio. Some have done better than others. I'm sure the average is probably better than the stock market, even on an after-tax basis.
Yeah.
I don't like the message of real estate always works. It's always the best investment. Just go get real estate and you'll be fine. No, go get real estate the right way, at a good buy, with a good plan. And yes, it can be very successful.
Yeah.
I just think it is just as dangerous to say everyone should go buy Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone should just go own the S&P 500 without understanding the ups and downs, and then it goes down and they panic and they sell out and they lose a lot of money, right? Any financial product can be done wrong. Yep. Any financial strategy can be done wrong. And there's a few good ones that have done right. And again, I'll be the first to admit, real estate done right can be a better investment than investing in the stock market.
Yeah.
You just got to do it right.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Well, if you want to end off, we'd like to end. If there's one thing you want to leave our listeners with, whether that's out of this episode or just kind of a word of wisdom in general, what would that be?
Question. I mean, I think just as far as the finances go, right, like get a plan, whether it's real estate, whether it's something else, whether it's increasing your own personal value by reinvesting yourself, learning new skills. I've always thought that, that there's only two ways to make more money, right? It's either you help more people or you help people more, right? Either you go out, you do more sales, you help more people, and you get more money that way, or you learn skills, you develop things that help you help the same people, but help them to a greater level, right? So for me, like I was not a good salesperson. I could not sell enough whole life insurance to make a living. I could not do these things, right? But I realized like I can learn this stuff and I can learn how to communicate it well. And so I went deep first to get really good at what I do so that I can help people not just sell them a policy or not just set up a Roth IRA, but really understand tax planning, really understand investment planning, retirement, estate planning, all these different things. And now, because I can help people more than, anyone else in town, in my opinion, people are coming and they want that. I'm like, I want that extra layer of service, right? You can go out and sell a whole bunch of really cheap homes as a realtor, and you can help a lot more people selling cheap homes, or you can get really good at being a realtor, get better at your presentations, better at your listings, better all these things, and sell higher ticket homes and help. You're not maybe helping more people, but you're helping less people, but you're helping them more. So I think for younger people, I think just figuring out a way to either help more people or help people more, get the skills you need, do something. And that's the other reason I don't actually work with a lot of young people, because just from my own experience, it's hard for me to say, go, even for me, go throw your money in your 401k and earn 10%. When I think that for a lot of people, they could be investing in themselves, growing some skills, increasing their own income, and should be investing in themselves first to get up to a certain point, and then turn around and do some of those other investments. But not everyone's wired that way, and I can't be out there preaching, personal development and self-actualization, and also preaching retirement planning. Although I just had to choose my lane there. But I think and that this part of it, right, is listening to good podcasts that hopefully inspire people to go out there and try things. Reading or listening to good books. I'm a huge advocate of audiobooks, and you can do that in the car. You can do that anywhere. And just, like people have everything that can be done has already been done by someone. So we can either fiddle around and make all the mistakes to do it, or we can listen to good podcasts, listen to good books, find out how other people have done it, and
copy and paste.
They did. Yeah.
Or documentaries. I watch those because then people think I read.
Very good.
Cool. Thanks for being here, Freeman. This was really good.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. It's been a pleasure.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. We sincerely hope that you learned something today and found value in today's episode. And as always, we appreciate your support and hope that you can all find a way this week to pay it forward.